BBOR Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. BlackBoxNid88 on Instagram for the bonus podcast. And welcome to BBOR, the home of true crime talk radio and your premier destination for unsolved mysteries, criminal psychology, and exploring the dark side of cyberspace. My name is Ned DeHaan, and I am your host, as well as the creator of AstroPsych 400 here on YouTube, and regular contributor to the Zodiac Killer channel. And a great way to support these shows is just by listening to some more content. But you can also go over to Amazon.com and have a look at the book Killer on a White Horse, written by me, Ned DeHaan. It is a novel, murder mystery, inspired by the Zodiac Hansen connection, but it is indeed fictional. However, who doesn't love a good mystery? And there is always the TeeSpring page. Feel free to check out some of the merchandise. And remember, being weird is not a crime. Let the show begin. Alright, hello everybody. Today is Monday, another Zodiac Monday. Welcome to the show. How's everybody doing? Hope everyone had a good weekend. And just a couple of quick announcements and reminders before we begin. The first one is that this show is available for free downloads at LaunchPad 1. There's a link to that in the description box. You can download the audio version as a pure podcast, take it on the go anywhere and anyhow. And I've released one book called Killer on a White Horse, A Story of the Evening Watchman. It is a novel, and the second book that I'm hoping to release will come out in the very near future to people who are listening to this live. It should be released at the end of this month, October of 2022. Down the Dark Lane, 3 thrillers from the motel, and it contains a sequel story to Killer on a White Horse, and there's going to be some interlocking material that I'll talk about closer to the actual release date. So please just keep an eye out for that on the horizon. And as far as this channel goes, there is an ongoing series about a new possible discovery in the Zodiac Killer mystery, and that is the series that I'm doing on the weekends called Zodiac Killer New Discovery, the Moraga Letters, which not only talks about pieces of writing that may have been written by the Zodiac Killer, but a new Zodiac suspect named Robert Volvins. And the final reminder is that even though I talk about the Zodiac Killer with you guys every Monday, as well as the weekend series, there are definitely numerous other true crime discussions available on this channel, such as the ongoing series about the New Orleans Axeman, which comes out every Wednesday here on BlackBoxOnlineRadio. In the past, I was doing a regular segment about the Phantom Killer on the Wednesday show, and I have decided that I need to get back to that one in the future, because the Axeman case and the Phantom Killer case are different for a particular reason. The first is that the source material for the New Orleans Axeman is so direct and precise. A lot of the general public's understanding of the Axeman case came to us from a book called Ready to Hang by Robert Talon, which was published in the 1950s, and there's a chapter in that book. It's actually called Ready to Hang 7 Famous New Orleans Murders. One of them is the Axeman story. His chapter is called The Axeman Wore Wings. And then there is only one other book that serves as the definitive authority on the Axeman story, and that is The Axeman of New Orleans, The True Story by Miriam C. Davis. So there are very clear starting points, and there are very clear challenging points, and everything is rather well organized, whereas if you followed my Phantom Killer series that I did over the summer, it was somewhat of a clusterfuck. I'm being very, very honest, and that's on me, that's not on anybody else, but I definitely would like to do that in a more organized manner, perhaps the way that the Axeman series is done, but that'll be happening in the distant future because I'm just really scratching the surface with the story of the New Orleans Axeman, an unidentified serial killer who operated in the earlier part of the 20th century. In this episode, though, I would like to talk about not only the Zodiac Killer, but also some of the pieces of writing that the Zodiac mailed in, and some of the observations from contemporary theorists. Particularly, I'm still going through the book How to Find Zodiac by Jared Kobeck. But first I would like to continue with some material from last week, giving another shout out to Dennis D., who did the experiment using a pencil flashlight on a gun barrel. The Zodiac Killer was a serial killer who also wrote letters and created ciphers and cryptograms to taunt the police and the media, as well as the general public. And in one letter, he said that he taped a pencil flashlight to his gun barrel, and that is how he was able to shoot in the dark, particularly during the Zodiac Killer's first confirmed crimes, the Lake Herman Road murders. And Dennis shared a video with me about how he did the same thing, taping a small pencil flashlight to the barrel of a gun, and he was able to follow the Zodiac's instructions by aiming in the center of the beam of light, or the center of the light cone, and he was able to hit the target every single time. And he even said that at a range of 20 to 25 feet it should be rather deadly, so it seems like the Zodiac may have been telling the truth. And the request was that could I actually highlight the places, the bullet holes on the target, to show that he did indeed successfully do this. That request can easily be granted. But then Dennis D. asked another question. Ned, do you have any info regarding Arthur Lee Allen after he busted through Ralph Spinelli's door with a knife in his hand? For this, I would definitely direct you to Drew Beeson's channel, The Zodcast. Well, Drew Beeson's channel is called Drew Beeson. He does a segment called The Zodcast, and he's talked a lot about the interactions between Arthur Lee Allen, the prime suspect in the Zodiac Killer mystery, as well as Ralph Spinelli, and even Don Chaney. Because the only feedback that I would give about this particular story is that Arthur Lee Allen was not convicted of the Zodiac crimes, but he was indeed a criminal. He was a sex offender. He was someone who also had a very big disregard for the law. And he was a deviant person. When he was interviewed by the police, he was wearing a Zodiac watch when they were talking to him about the Zodiac crimes. And he was also reported, I repeat, reported to have been much tougher than he led on. Because for starters, Arthur Lee Allen was somewhat of a big guy, around 6 feet tall and well over 200 pounds. And, I mean, height alone and weight alone doesn't really mean that someone is going to be a tough guy. But there's a very famous story out there about how Donald Lee Chaney was Arthur Lee Allen's close friend, and Arthur Lee Allen, being a sex offender, molested Chaney's daughter. And then a long period of time went by, and then Chaney decided to retaliate by bringing Arthur Lee Allen forward as a Zodiac Killer suspect. Now, if you read the book Sighting In on the Zodiac Killer by Drew Beeson, you'll see very clearly he disputes that. He does not believe the molestation actually happened. I personally do not believe the molestation actually happened. I also think that, what was that? Don Chaney's daughter even discussed this publicly and said she had no recollection of it. But I don't want to misstate any of the details. It's been a while since I've read about that stuff. So the point is, some of the narrative about Arthur Lee Allen's aggressive behavior seems to be true, and other parts of it seem to be false. And I was asking this question very clearly. Why would Don Chaney choose to retaliate against Arthur Lee Allen in that particular way? If someone has molested his daughter, why didn't he go through the proper channels of law enforcement? Why didn't he get the guy arrested or something like that? And the response is that even though Don Chaney wasn't a small man, Don Chaney was 6 feet tall as well, then, and Arthur Lee Allen wouldn't have been overbearing in his face, Allen was the tougher of the two. He definitely would have been the tougher guy, and Chaney did not think that he could overpower him. So I don't necessarily think all of that is true. In fact, I think that that story is just simply not true, that Don Chaney's daughter was not molested by Arthur Lee Allen. Now, as far as attacking Spinelli, I'm really going to have to defer that, because I don't know that much about it. But I do want to point out, though, that there are these conflicting stories that people share about Arthur Lee Allen's behavior. On the one hand, he is somebody who is very dangerous, very capable, and definitely not a weakling. And on the other hand, he's just that gentle man who loved chipmunks and dogs and liked being with nature and such. And I definitely found a convincing response that was put forward by Tony, who sent this into the Facebook page, saying that that whole thing was a facade, liking chipmunks and dogs and being alone with nature. Arthur Lee Allen just used that as a way to attract people to him, to put them in this non-threatening state, the way that many sex offenders and even serial killers do. He was a sociopath, and he just did that so people wouldn't notice his sociopathy immediately. And I think that Tony makes an even more convincing presentation on the subject than I did. But in this episode here, I'd like to talk about the 13-hole card that was mailed by the Zodiac killer, because as I said, the Zodiac isn't only committing murders, he's also mailing in letters, cryptograms, and cards of various sorts. There's the more famous Halloween card, as well as the Pines card, and then perhaps there are even some other possible Zodiac communications well after the crimes took place, such as the 1990 Eureka card, which features the snowman wearing the Groucho Marx sunglasses. But one that I've never talked about on the show in great detail has been the 13-hole card, also known as the 13-hole punch card, and even the 13 postcard. So let's have a read through right here from ZodiacCiphers.com. And if you don't read ZodiacCiphers.com, I highly recommend it, because I've really found that Richard Grinnell, who runs that website, has done a very, very solid job of putting together resources and commentaries on almost anything Zodiac related, even when there are possible Zodiac crimes out there that I think no one else is ever going to be talking about. I find that there's an article about it on ZodiacCiphers.com. It's been a good resource for me, and I would like to invite you to check it out more. The Circular Cipher. On April 20th of 1970, the Zodiac killer mailed a 13-symbol cipher to the San Francisco, in addition to a bus bomb diagram threatening to blow up a school bus. Let's compare the 13-symbol cipher to the 13-hole postcard, which was mailed on October 5th of 1970, to which the Zodiac killer may have completed the introduction of the "My name is" cipher to "My name is FK, I'm crack-proof," again teasing us with a less than complete resolution to his real identity. FK, I'm crack-proof. When you look at the 13-hole postcard, it is clear that the Zodiac had plenty of room to configure punch holes into any arrangement he liked, yet he chose to overload one line with 10 holes and just 3 on the other. One could be forgiven for believing that this was done on purpose in design. The April 20th, 1970 and October 5th, 1970 communications were littered with Christian symbolism. We have the red crucifix, the 3/8, which in Christian numerology represents Jesus or Christ the Redeemer, the Celtic cross, and the anchor, adopted by the Christians as a symbol of hope in the future of existence. The number 8 is infinity in Christianity and representative of eternal life. Now, I think that some of you are already probably going to jump out of your skin hearing that, and when I was growing up, we always referred to a sideways 8 as infinity, because it's something that doesn't seem to have a beginning or an end, and it's twisting back and forth. This truly is the first time that I've heard that the number 8 represents infinity. A sideways 8 versus standing up does, but I mean, I don't think we need to say any more than that. They all play into the belief of an afterlife. This brought forward the notion that the number 8 is in the 13-symbol cipher, was the beginning of each element, and the phrase FK, I'm crack-proof, as shown in a diagram. One can see that the letter F becomes the 5th letter in both sequences, and the letter I becomes the 7th letter in both sequences, and the C becomes the 9th letter in both sequences, and with the K and M slotting in between. In short, the letters F, I, C in both instances are separated into 3 circles and positioned identically in both sequences. The use of circles in both the 13-hole postcard and 13-symbol cipher plays directly into the phrase FK, I'm crack-proof, which then can be placed around the already existing K and M in the code, and forms an eternal circular repeating sequence. The April 20th, 1970 communication now satisfied the October 22nd, 1969 challenge by cryptographer D.C.B. Marsh in San Francisco for the Zodiac killer to reveal his name. This is the Zodiac speaking. By the way, have you cracked the last cipher I sent you? My name is FK, I'm crack-proof. And I think that there are a couple interjections. First, with the April 1970 communication, the Z13, not everyone is in complete agreement that that's a proof I'm crack, meaning I'm crack-proof. FK, I'm crack-proof. Not everybody accepts that. One person who comes to mind immediately would be Kelly Marshall, because she has talked about that the K and M are representative of her Zodiac killer suspect, Xenophon Anthony. This suspect's name began with the letter X, and the word Zodiac begins with the letter Z. So she points out if you shift the letters K and M by 13 letters, like going 13 letters in the opposite direction, you will get the letters X and Z. So, alphabetically, that is, so that you have the solution to the Z13 cipher is going to be X and Z for Xenophon Zodiac. And that's just one take on the subject. Another longtime listener to the channel, Rick Hansen, went on to launch his own series of videos under just that name, Rick Hansen, here on YouTube, and he had a rather interesting take on the Z13, where he said that the solution is a mirroring technique, but it isn't FK I'm crack-proof, it's my name is name my. It was a pure mirroring of the words, meaning there's not an exact, precise solution. It's just the Zodiac Killer's doing some more teasing, which I think this article from Richard Grinnell would be rather in agreement with, that it's not actually giving the suspect's real name. And if you listen to my series on the Moraga letters, which has been mostly created by Sphere the Cube. He uses that name. We also refer to him as Sphere. And Sphere has made lots of observations about how the Zodiac may have given a few hints about his name, but is, of course, not going to reveal that in its entirety. And, I mean, if you haven't heard that series, I'll just tell you flat out, not relating to the hole punch card or the Z13, but rather the Z18 code. He proposed that it's the tip, hi, I'm Robert, meaning the Zodiac is giving his first name in the communications, but not his entire legal name. And I really don't believe the entire legal name is hidden there. Some people think the Z13 is going to reveal Earl Van Best, or that it's going to reveal Edward Edwards. And I think both of those suspects are absolutely ridiculous and far out, and I've talked about it numerous times on the channel. I thought that this episode wouldn't be complete if I didn't return to an alternative and perhaps somewhat more far out discussion on the 13-hole punch card that comes to us from Dale Julin, who is associated with the Case Breakers. As I've said in some previous episodes, Dale Julin definitely believes that Gary Francis Post was the Zodiac Killer, a statement that is supported by the Case Breakers. I'm not sure of his exact involvement, because in interviews, both Dale Julin and Tom Colbert, the Case Breakers leader, have said that the Case Breakers were an existing organization and then they got in touch with Dale Julin, so I don't know if he's like an honorary member or he is a full-on member in their crime-solving organization, but they put forward one of the worst Zodiac Killer suspects in recent times, Gary Francis Post. And first, let's begin by looking at some of Dale Julin's observations about the 13-hole punch card, and I'll provide one more condition that, even though I don't support any of the Case Breakers material, I think that Dale Julin is absolutely more articulate on the subject than Tom Colbert. I think that he has some very solid theories and observations, and that he has just a little bit more rhyme to his reason, if we want to use that expression. There's a note that's written on the Zodiac Killer's 13-hole punch card that says, "There are reports that city police pigs are closing in on me. I'm crack-proof. What is the price tag now?" Tying into Richard Grinnell's claims, FK, I'm crack-proof. And the reason why I wanted to do this episode is because I've talked about Dale Julin's solutions to the Halloween card as well as the Pines card, and he is of the belief that the Zodiac Killer mailed in these greeting cards for a reason, that there are very intricate hidden messages in the Zodiac's artwork, that they have paragraphs of text can be extracted from these greeting cards. And firstly, the Halloween card will talk a lot about the disappearance of Donna Lass, and I did a regular part series on the disappearance of Donna Lass last year, so I'm always willing to listen to what somebody says about her case. And I mean, Dale Julin's Zodiac theory is centered on her disappearance, not just that she's a possible Zodiac victim. He believes very clearly that the operation heavily focused on Donna Lass. And I'm going to read something from the Tahoe Daily Tribune, a publication that I've come to read very frequently over the last year. And it says, the 13-hole punch card in Dale Julin's book is key to finding a particular location at Zephyr Cove near Lake Tahoe that the Zodiac killer had a fascination with. I was amazed by Dale's tenacity and perseverance, said Jen Buchholz, a member of the Casebreakers and former Army counterintelligence agent who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, who was also an author and published writer that holds master's degrees in both criminal justice and forensic sciences. She helped connect Julin with the Casebreakers. I never thought the letters could be anagrams. Kudos to him. I think he solved the case. I've read some other accounts. They don't nearly make as much sense as him solving the case with anagrams. Now, said that he had a solution that would reveal a large piece of text, and it is. Dale Julin's solution to the 13-hole punch card sent on October 5th of 1970 is, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Nurse Donna Lass's body, out of joint icy body, is 13 yards high up in bare cache, marked Big Pine Tree, go magnetic north to compass bearing 85 degrees, southeast 1970 implicit feet from the MS Dixie port at Zephyr Cove, to historic Lincoln Center, collect telephone trunk call, who? Gary Francis Post. Now you might be wondering, how did he come to that solution? And I will tell you next year, once Dale Julin's book is out, and then he actually tells us how he has come to these solutions. But no matter what, he is extracting very large pieces of information from these very small texts. And I'm quite curious to know how he does that. It goes into the category of, I'm not concerned. No, I'm not concerned. But I am curious, just not concerned. And it's really interesting that he also uses the MS Dixie port in the 13-hole punch card, because that is part of his solution to the Halloween card. And in case you haven't heard that episode of the Zodiac Killer News Report, where I read off that one, I will read his possible solution to the artwork on the Halloween card, which says, bye-bye birdie, time to fly, A-OK, upside down end, Nurse Donna Lass's body is Y14Y, up in a tree in a hollow log, Ponderosa pine tree, E by night, you'll see her now approaching, lunar sunrise and Scorpius blue lock up gully view, Y by CB MNZ degrees, southeast of Zephyr Cove, 4 miles east of State Line, Nevada, on the Hootin' Tootin' MS Dixie ship, OOD, take the helm, aye, Captain Gary Francis Post. That's his solution, meaning that these pieces of artwork that the Zodiac has shared are all done deliberately, and they have super precise meanings. Now, here is a big challenge, though. You might be wondering, what is the MS Dixie? Well, it's a Mississippi-style riverboat that was authentic. It was a real Mississippi riverboat that was brought in parts to Lake Tahoe, I believe in 1948. It's been a while since I've done that episode. And then reassembled and then put on the lake. It was not operational until 1972, but it was docked at Zephyr Cove. However, State Line, Nevada is eastward of Lake Tahoe. Like, that's all on land. Of course, there are rivers in that part, but that's one thing that never made sense to me, that he's saying southeast of Zephyr Cove, 4 miles east of State Line, Nevada, on a riverboat? But, I mean, how on earth would you take a riverboat on land? I suppose anything's possible. But I said that Dale Julin also had a solution to the Pines card, which is, this is the Zodiac Killer's Pines card, which was mailed on March 22nd of 1971. Gonna drive me to drinking. Rev up the 12cc HP Model A out to USFS Acres to see Sis Donna Lass in a tree with Cash X mark. Cruise to her historic Lincoln address at a beach. Face up the hill. Go fish. Z is Sir Gary Francis Post. And one more time, the 13-hole punch card, which we've been discussing, mailed on October 5th of 1970. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Nursed on Alassa's out-of-joint icy body is 13 yards high up in a tree in a bare cache marked big pine tree. Go magnetic north to compass bearing 85 degrees southeast, 1970 implicit feet from the MS Dixie Port at Zephyr Cove to historic Lincoln Center. Collect telephone trunk call. Who? Gary Francis Post. Now, this was something that you guys shared in the comments section. One of you who listened to this program simply said that even if it turns out that Gary Francis Post were indeed the Zodiac Killer, Dale Julian's solutions are probably purely coincidental for the following reason, that they are so detailed and they're so extensive. I mean, even if you were just to look at artwork and extract a paragraph of text, let alone 3 paragraphs, you're probably going to make a few mistakes along the way, unless you were sitting down with the creator and they could walk you through it. What other people try to do with a Halloween card is they point out that, oh, well, this symbol was used from Red Rider, or that says by rope, by knife, by gun, by fire. Oh, well, that came from a Tim Holt comic book. Maybe there was a reason for that. Not about putting the symbol and turning it into a sentence. There was a French schoolteacher named Yves Persson who did look at a particular symbol on the Zodiac Killer's Halloween card, and what he thought was that that symbol was actually 5 Celtic letters put together, and it revealed the letters H, O, D, E, and L, which spells out Hodel, the name of a Zodiac Killer suspect, George Hill Hodel, who was also a suspect in the Black Dahlia case, and he is more or less the foundation of the Zodiac Killer Black Dahlia Avenger connection, although other people have suspects, and they insist that their suspect was also the Zodiac Killer and the Black Dahlia Avenger. And the final line that I will share with you about the Zodiac Killer's 13-hole punch card is that maybe it's FK, I'm crack-proof, maybe it's giving some information about the disappearance of Donna Lass, like we've been talking about, but there was a channel out there called the Zodiac Killer Insight series, which has since been reshaped into a shattered mirror, and the videos come up and come down frequently, and I believe a lot of the episodes that were up there have been removed. But there was an interview that was put out on the channel The Mystic Drop, a program which I've been a guest on as well, and they were talking about the 13-hole punch card, and saying that the reason why there are 13 holes is because King Arthur had 13 Knights of the Round Table, and this presentation was done by Joe Fernandez, who had a suspect named Gareth Penn, and yet Gareth Penn, author of Time 17, a Zodiac Killer researcher who went on to become a suspect himself. And Joe's solution was that King Arthur had 13 Knights of the Round Table, and the 13th knight was Saint Gareth, and that it's cluing in on that. And believe it or not, even though I don't think Gareth Penn was the Zodiac Killer, I do think that that is somewhat of a reasonable observation. I mean, if anything, it's a shocking coincidence, not just a coincidence, but a shocking coincidence if that were, well, if that is just a benign statement. You got 13 hole punches and round table, round circles. I mean, a lot of those elements coming together, and it just happens to match up with one of the most famous Zodiac Killer researchers in history. The other skeptical part of me is just saying, well, I mean, it doesn't actually say round table, it's talking about the round circles, and okay, I mean, you're messing around with the shapes a little bit, but the name, Gareth, I mean, there's the coincidence all the same. Now I would like to switch gears and talk about some new material, and that's just going to come to us from the book How to Find Zodiac by Jared Kobeck, and talking about a suspect named Paul Doerr. And Jared Kobeck does have a lot of observations about the Z13 cipher in this book, but because I've been dwelling on the Z13 and the 13-hole punch card, I'd like to share some of the more famous things that Kobeck is known for, and that is the Zodiac Killer's mustache. Now, let's just jump right into page 244 in Jared Kobeck's How to Find Zodiac. After the murder of Paul Stine on October 14th of 1969, the SFPD released a sketch of the Zodiac. On an unknown basis, the sketch had been refined. The second version was dated October 17th of 1969. The drawings look like this. As Doerr had a mustache and no glasses at Bacon, why not draw a mustache on the sketches and remove the glasses? That's a question that has been proposed, or has been posed to the reader. Well, that's because they didn't have them in the original. I mean, why not do that? It's called a fictitious additive, my friend. Based on evidence in previous books in the zodiology genre, convention almost always demanded a modified police sketch. The writer adhered to form. He modified the first sketch. It almost looked nothing. It looked like nothing, a comic ghost. Kobach performed the same actions on the second sketch as he removed the glasses and realized that for 52 years the spectacles had distorted the image. Take away the glasses, and its drawing was that of an actual person, when what one sees is someone with an extremely large chin and a very long nose, and it looked like this, and then Kobach drew on a mustache and compared the sketch to the photograph in the Doer profile. Together they looked like this. Well, so this is the stuff that Jared Kobach really came under fire for, talking about how his suspect Paul Doer had a mustache in 1969, and that is not mentioned in any of the witness descriptions. Mike Mageau was also a surviving witness who saw the Zodiac killer's face, and he wasn't able to make out any discernible features other than stating that his face was really big. But he didn't say that he had a mustache, let alone the Robbins kids who actually saw the Zodiac did not notice any mustache, and the 8-year-old witness who said that he looked like Xenophon Anthony also did not say anything about the perpetrator having a mustache. And I believe there's a quote from Tom Voigt somewhere on the internet that said that this guy must be really desperate if he had to redraw the composite, remove the glasses, and add a mustache. But that's the whole point, though. That's why Kobach received so much crap for this, is because he is literally fudging the facts. And I can understand how some people are cherry picking to get a desired result, or as I like to use the term, pumpkin picking to get a desired result when they only have one solid fact that they just hold on to. No, this is nothing of the sort. No, this isn't cherry picking. This is blatantly fudging the facts to get a desired result. Kobach thought of something that he saw in the beginning, a classified placed by Doer. It appeared on the 23rd to 29th of January 1970, Berkeley Barb, after the Belleye letter before April 20th of 1970 that contained the Z13. It looked like this. Wanted, cheap books on botany, anthropology, archaeology, Old Greek, Medit civilization, MEDIT, Medit, low rainfall, flora, fauna. Actually, fauna is misspelled FAUUA, flora, fauna, living methods, Shao Zen Yoga Occult Health List, date, price, condition, Doer, box, 1444, Vallejo. Prior to 1970, the only evidence of Doer's interest in the occult is a sentence in the first patter, which is a publication dated September of 1968, Witchcraft is Returning. In some force, I might add, there are thousands of covens in England, and it is rapidly spreading here. I would like to know one here. I think there was one in San Francisco. This does not suggest the mastery of the topic, but by the time that Doer finds Green Egg, that's the name of another publication in early of 1971, he can write long, cogent letters about the occult. Despite many claims as to when Doer's Unknown first appeared, it was possible just for Kobach to give its inaugural issue a rough date. Alright, now I want to ask you guys something. This is a pure challenge question. Have you ever had a particular fascination with a subject that started rather quickly? I mean, I used to do this with YouTube videos. I would go through a phase just watching YouTube videos, and then, within a year, yeah, I would be able to talk about something that I wasn't familiar with previously. But maybe there would be about 3 months when I was just watching Bigfoot content nonstop, or maybe some things about UFOs. The Zodiac killer came up in 2011, and I would just get these somewhat very long-winded spirals into things like conspiracy theories, or even the Alex Jones world for a while. And yes, you can learn a lot about a subject in a year and a half. Or even if you can't learn a lot about it, you can definitely be exposed to a lot of crap content and garbage about it. And I'm really not so surprised that he's just kind of curious about the occult in one year, and the next year he's able to write long paragraphs about it. It's called learning. That's what we do. Topside number 34 is dated in the fall of 1970. The previous installment is dated in the winter of 1970. Number 35 is dated 1971 and contains another ad for Unknown. The fanzine is not referred to as new. Publishing 101, make a publication about a topic, send it out to people interested in the topic, which means that BBOR started publishing Unknown somewhere around the spring of 1970. So this guy's running a fanzine, and he's also the Zodiac killer. You think that he would have had some type of crossover. Oh, I mean that because some people view the Zodiac as just the sad, lonely man who had no friends, he had no social connections. He was a guy who perhaps worked a solitary job, but was described as being the nicest guy in the world. However, his coworkers didn't actually spend a lot of time with him. And the reason why they think this is they think that he's not even expressing his ideas. He's just devoting all of his mental energy to being the Zodiac for a brief period of time. And then there are other people out there who think everything to the contrary. They think that the Zodiac was part of some type of orchestrated group, that there was a deliberate reason why a group of people committed the crimes, and that the Zodiac was just a persona attributed to it. But both of those do not involve being a participant or managing any type of publication on a subject. So, next paragraph. Imagine that you're going on a kill spree. Well, I don't want to do that. Imagine that there is no ideological justification or obvious motive. I mean, all right, Kobach, I'll humor you. It's just this thing that happened. You've created a mystery in your own life. Imagine that your kill spree was reported upon in the Masonite fog. Everyone thinks that it's an occult crime wave. Imagine that you are susceptible as anyone to the voices coming from newspapers, radio, and television, if not more so. The kill spree is the most important thing in your life, and you have no idea why it happened. What do? You look for an explanation. Thou art our Father. Thou art our Father. Thou art our Father. It took me 3 times to get such a simple sentence. Okay, let's go into his thought experiment and challenge question. So, it seems that he's making the assumption that the Zodiac killer would not have known why he committed these crimes. Um, I will give strong disagreement on this, and if you think I'm being a little bit hard on Kobach, I am. Strong disagreement because everything in the Zodiac killer's letters is very clear. He's doing things because of egoism. I mean, he's talking about how he wants to kill people and have them be his slaves in paradise, meaning that he's not going to hell, he's going to paradise, and those whom he has killed will become his slaves. He's all about himself. He's all about just trying to be worshipped as some type of king or maybe even some type of god, and I don't think for a second the Zodiac Killer thought that any of that stuff was actually going to happen. Instead, I think that that is a persona. It's a character, and he's playing the part and he's living out the part when he's committing the crimes and writing the letters. But this goes to show the functions of mental derangement, that he has the inability to differentiate between fantasy and reality, and even during the times when he can differentiate between the two of them, he is choosing to ignore it or just choosing to recognize that these elements of fantasy life should not, well, they should be kept in fantasy world, but he's allowing the floodgates to come open, metaphorically speaking, and unleash his destructive tendencies on other people based on the persona. Now, it's important to remember that this is an unsolved case, and everything I said could be completely wrong. Paul Doerr could have been the Zodiac. There could have also been a group of people who orchestrated the Zodiac as some type of thrill-kill club, and I talked recently about the theory that there's this group of police officers that committed the crimes, and they use their law enforcement techniques to cover it up and blame it on some type of fictitious Zodiac killer boogeyman. People have theories like that all the time, and sometimes it's not even the police. Sometimes it's the military, or sometimes it's the government, and maybe an organization such as the Minutemen, where you'll see Zodiac killer suspects like Paul Doerr and Troy Howden. The point is that not everyone is on the same page, but I definitely don't think the Zodiac wouldn't have had an understanding of why he committed the crimes, and I do think that that is a rather twisted mental exercise and isn't very beneficial, for the following reason. I always go back to Inspector Mark Rowley, who was involved with the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. It is impractical to try and put your mind into the mind of a perpetrator, especially a serial killer, because you're thinking like a normal person. 75% of you, 25% of you are like me, insane, right? But most people are thinking like a normal person. And even if you're not, you don't know exactly how the other person is thinking. So to try and live through their shoes, to try and put your mind on their mind on the same page, they might be doing something demented and out of control. And in psychosis, there is no logic. Someone told me that once. Do you believe me? In psychosis, there is no logic. That is why people are found not guilty by mental disease or defect if they have an extreme psychotic disorder and they're going through a psychotic episode, because they had no true awareness and understanding of their actions. I don't think the Zodiac killer was experiencing that, because everything that the Zodiac is doing suggests to me that he did understand what he was doing, and he had a clear motive and a clear objective, and he knew why he committed these crimes, and he perhaps knew that there was some element of heterosexual animosity. So those pages from Kovacs suggest to me that he's saying that the Zodiac is ignorant. I think the Zodiac was very clear-headed, just clear-headed in a selfish and destructive way. But who do you agree with? Kobeck or me? You can put your responses in the comment section down below. What do you think about Paul Door's a Zodiac killer suspect? What do you think about the observations in regards to the Zodiac killer's 13-hole punch card and the threat against the pigs, and that they're trying to catch me, but fuck, I'm crack-proof? What do you want to say? Put your ideas in the comment section down below, and maybe your comment will be used in a future episode of Black Box Online Radio. And right now, I would like to get to your shout-outs on BuyMeACoffee.com to help conclude the episode. Anybody who makes a donation or contribution will get a shout-out here on Zodiac Monday. And the first one comes to us from Jerome, who runs the French Wrecking Crew. He has a YouTube channel as well as a Facebook page, which shares a lot of true crime discussions, as well as just promoting other videos, and he even makes his own content here on YouTube. I really do thank Jerome for all of his support in terms of sharing, and he's also contributed on BuyMeACoffee.com saying, "Long life to justice, long life to BBOR. Thank you again." And our next one comes to us from Batman. Batman bought you a coffee. I don't think I'll ever get tired of hearing that. And of course, this is from Bruce, who has also contributed a lot of discussion material and provided the source readings for several episodes, particularly things on the disappearance of William Higgins, as well as the one that I did on the Devil's Gap, the untold story of Canada's first suicide bomber. So thank you so much to these guys, and one more time, feel free to visit the links in the description box, and I will see you guys over on Instagram for the bonus podcast. Goodbye.